Hey, everybody. Happy Monday. Super intriguing topic today, as always, around ransomware and the cybersecurity landscape with assured data protection. Stacy, how are you?
Hey, Evan, I'm great. Talking to you from not so sunny Minneapolis, Minnesota, where the snow is a falling. But it looks like it's, other than your big jacket, looks like it was warm behind you, but now it's colder.
It's Boston, so it's always cold here this time of year, but we're gonna work right through it. And so intrigued, excited to have you here. Um, let's start with you. Maybe introduce yourself, a little bit about your bio. Started in the U.S. Navy. I want to talk to you about that. But more recently, what do you do at Assured Data Protection?
I'm a co-founder at Assured. We started this company in 2016, really around one single OEM partner, which is really we're an MSP, and so
Hmm.
that's a unique category in the business space. But we are very unique in that we chose just one OEM partner as opposed to many,
Oh wow.
and you'll kind of hear about that as we dig into things. But from my historical perspective, yeah, there was some time at the Navy who taught me how to make sure I had a haircut and get up early and work harder than everybody else. I am who I am today, courtesy of 6 years of that life, and I got to see the world. I had the most amazing experience ever. Being on a small combatant bouncing around
Wow.
the Mediterranean and the Red Sea during Desert Storm and all that good stuff. But all of my working life, they paid me for that, but man, it never felt like I was working. I've been in this data protection space. This is my second company. My first company was called DS3 Data Vaulting. We were acquired in 2010 by Verizon. And then I was biding my time until I found something exciting to do, and that was really what we started here at Assured. And I can't believe it was 7 years ago. It feels more like 7 months ago, and it's just been an amazing journey.
Time flies when you're having fun. Love your enthusiasm. So give us a state of the union, a snapshot, if you will, of the CIO's perspective, or maybe call him or her the CISO or the CISO or CSO. It's a complicated landscape, and what are they facing this year in terms of threats and mitigation and challenges? Just to start off on a difficult note.
Well, it's a not a difficult question to answer, Evan. And really, it's unfortunately in Cliff Notes, it's more of the same.
Mm,
I remember probably 18, 24 months ago, as ransomware and malware were really having a measurable impact. You were seeing it in the news. You as a journeyman in this business, 20, 25, 30 years, these trends come and go. And so it obviously caught a lot of people's attention. A lot of the business pivoted towards building solutions that address that particular impact on the CIO, the corporate IT landscape, and its relationship with the CISO, the Chief Information
mm.
Security Officer. But we all wondered when it would end. These cycles that we live in these days, it's only relevant until the next monster crawls out from under the bed. And to be honest with you, I didn't think we'd still be talking about this now, and we are. And if anything, it's getting worse. The threat actors are getting more bold. They're getting more capable. The tools and methods are improving, and it's a very scary landscape for the corporate IT department, regardless of what you do. You might be, running a high tech firm. You might be delivering solutions, technological solutions to corporations or the government. I talked to a customer 4 months ago who was making flooring, the wooden flooring
Mm.
underneath our feet, and they got hit by ransomware. So no
Oof.
one's safe. It doesn't matter what you do, how large you are, what your defenses look like. You're a target for this stuff.
Yes, indeed. So the name of the game, as you know, is preventing downtime. I used to talk to enterprises that had goals of zero downtime per year, like zero, and they sometimes manage to achieve it. So, what are some of the best strategies for businesses to prevent downtime and data loss associated with that?
So here's what makes this complicated, Evan.
Hmm.
Um, Most of your IT departments have invested heavily over the decades leading up until now on recovery strategies that are more aligned to a traditional what we would call disaster, the
Hmm.
loss of a site, the loss of um, a server, the loss of an application, and recovery from malware is very different because you're dealing with systems that have been compromised and without visibility into the depth and extent, what we would call the blast radius of that
Hmm.
compromise. um, the traditional methods not only are not appropriate, but they tend to make the situation worse. If you can't determine what the extent of the infection is, and therefore what your clean restoration point is going to be, you have the ability, you run the risk of reconstituting the virus in your recovery environment, and that is catastrophic. And at a minimum, delaying the time, the downtime, extending the downtime that you're looking at in order to recover from these attacks. Likewise, into this equation is inserted the CISO, the CISO, as you asked about earlier, and
Hmm.
that CISO's responsibility has always been perimeter defensive, and so they're put into a new dynamic because those external defenses that we spend so much time talking about, which are not my business, very, obviously, that's a robust marketplace with amazing tools. But the fact of the matter is that if you're in the process of responding to a ransomware or a malware attack, those defenses have failed. The bad guys have got inside of the wire, and so it's a different scenario for both the CIO and the CISO to have to be thrust. And how this works. There is no one calls you up and says, hey, on Thursday we're going to have a malware attack. This stuff happens Sunday night before Cyber Monday. It happens on Labor Day. It happens on a major holiday. These aren't random acts, and so it's a difficult landscape that our leaders are living in, are learning, and unfortunately have to learn how to live in almost immediately.
Hmm.
The Mike Tyson quote is the best, right? Everybody's got a
Hmm.
plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, malware is one of the most brutal punches in the mouth that I have seen in all of my career, because it's emotional, it's physical, it really messes with your psyche when it strikes. So to answer your question, what are these strategies? Well, if you all is not lost, because while it's a different scenario, having good disaster recovery plans are good strategies for not only protecting against traditional disasters as we discussed, but also responding from malware and ransomware. One of the most valuable things in this response time frame is clean room. Do you
Hmm.
have, first off, do you have visibility into what your good recovery points are? Do you have immutable backups so that your backups are protected and are not part of what the original attack has rendered unusable. And then, provided that you have recoverable backups, do you have somewhere to recover them so that you're not reinfecting your good data?
Yeah, so many great points there to dissect. You mentioned immutable backup for those non-storage deep tech folks. Explain the importance of immutable backup and disaster recovery in this modern era. There's a lot of legacy storage out there, but why do we need immutability?
It's a often it's an overused word.
Mhm.
And what I found interesting, Evan, in the industry is that people who, it's kind of table stakes now for data
Mm.
protection. There is very little what I would call core immutability in these solutions today. With one shining example, our OEM partner, Rubrik, where our solutions are built exclusively around the Rubrik platform, and their core technology, at the kernel level is immutable. Most of their competitors have had to bolt on solutions to
Mm.
achieve that, and as a result, a lot of people who will make an immutable claim will tend to draw the criticism or the ear of the marketplace, saying, hey, everybody uses that word. It's an overused word. But at the end of the day, the definition of that word is a capture of data that cannot be altered. And the way we achieve that is with an append-only file system. So once that snapshot of that data has been captured at that point in time, it's locked. It cannot be changed. And so, a lot of times in these attacks, the attackers will go in and make sure that they not only attack production storage, but they also look
Mm.
for the backup storage as well. And so that needs to be isolated from the environment. You need to have the ability to not have primary networks touch that storage. But with that kind of a file system, only changes can be added to it. And so what that means is that once that data is captured, even if you're in some kind of a 0-day scenario and you captured data, days, weeks in advance, before the malware, the virus had launched itself, you have this ability to not have to recover the virtual machine and actually extract the data from around the operating system and recover it. So it's a much maligned word, but it's table stakes these days because, as we mentioned earlier, a lot of the things that we perceive as defenses against this time attack have failed in the event of an attack. And so while the ability to threat hunt, the ability to scan, backup for the presence of malware, the ability to proactively search out for clean restoration points based on threat hunting capabilities, leveraging YAR rules, or custom rules that have been created by your security consultants, might look repetitive in the world of security products. The situation has to be considered. Those perimeter defenses have failed. We're now in a recovery, and backup tends to be the last line of response.
Right, I get it. So talk about recovery from attacks. You've probably seen it all, the good, the bad, the ugly. Maybe start with the good. Any examples of businesses that have quickly recovered from breaches working with you? And what are some of the best practices there?
Well, I think I want to start by saying that there's all kinds of attacks, and
Mm.
there's a decent amount of attacks that are caught early,
Mm.
perhaps limited to non-production systems. And so I'm careful not to try to fan the flames of the hype cycle,
Mm.
because there's a lot of attacks that happen all the time, and IT departments see them and move quickly to isolate them.
Mm.
Somebody may have put a test server up somewhere. It was on an isolated network. They accidentally opened up a firewall. The bad guys are scanning all the time, and so there are things that happen that don't necessarily disrupt activity, disrupt operations of the company, or necessarily get reported, either up the chain of command internally to a
Mm.
board of directors or outside. So there's a lot of that going on. But for all of those that do, there are those big highlight, real attacks that we see that occur. And a statistic, Evan, that we put out, and I'm in a unique position to kind of have lived, because my previous company was also in the data protection space, and
Mm.
and like I said, this world of attacks that we've been living in is been going on for 24, 36 months. And I turned to one of my co-founders, our CIO, and who I was lucky enough to have in my first company, and I said, how many bona fide balloon went up attacks did we have, where the
Mm.
customer declared we had to spin up in our data center and operate for a period of time, and I mean, I'm talking not so much attack, I'm talking about a true live disaster. So a cable
Mm.
cut, a fire, a flood, a hurricane.
Mm.
And we ran that company, we ran DS3 for a decade, and Andrew had to go away and think about it. And he came back and he said, three in
Wow.
10 years. We have
Wow.
been in a constant state of declaration. Someone has declared a disaster in our world, and is actively running in our data centers globally. We have 7 all around the globe, constantly for the last 24 months. And that's a stunning statistic, to kind of bring out the difference in 16 years. So what works the best? Well, back to what I said about having a good plan.
Mm.
When you're recovering in our environment, first off, the basis of our solution is Rubrik, and so we have immutable backups, on behalf of our customers. The topology and the way this works is that there is Rubrik in 2 places. There's Rubrik with the customer, and there's Rubrik inside of Assured, and there is
Mm.
replication between those 2 instances. And then all the run books and the boot order automation, all of the things that are, all of the orchestration that is required to affect that recovery has been well thought out in our disaster recovery plans. And so the disaster recovery plans quickly become cyber recovery plans, primarily because we're a third party. And so that recovery environment that I'm bringing our customers up in is effectively a clean room. It's a place not in their environment, and so wherever that infection may be hiding in their environment, it's not going to reside inside of our environments when we bring them up. What we find, Evan, is a customer will reach out to us and they'll say, "Look, I've got a problem. I'm down. I need to recover." And while Rubrik has protected their data, their systems are compromised, so they can't recover on site. And so they are invoking their disaster recovery plan inside of our facility.
Mm.
We're leveraging Rubrik tools, Threat Hunter, sensitive data discovery, to determine how big and how deep is that blast radius. Where is the last good copy that can be recovered, so that we're cutting down on the amount of time that it takes to recover, and we're eliminating the risk of reinfection. And then we're bringing that environment up inside of our environment. And so the data comes back up, they're operating in DR. And when you're operating in DR in our environment, the rule is you could stay as long as you like, you just can't stay forever, because we're not a production environment. But we give our customers the time to get back into operations, but then focus on their primary site, clean up whatever that infection, that malware that caused
Mm.
the outage to occur. And then at a point in time where they have done all of their testing, they've confirmed that everything is cleaned up and again safe, we simply reverse replication, take all of their production data for the last 2 weeks, 2 months, however how long they've stayed in our environment, move it right back into their production, seamlessly bring it up. and it's a very given the disruptive nature of what's happened,
Mm.
it's a pretty smooth process.
Wow, that's super impressive. So it's very confusing to me, given how many vendors there are and solutions and different technology approaches. How does someone implement a best practices in data protection? Like, there's so many different ways to approach this. What are some of the challenges you see out there with clients and getting started with best practices in this
Well, I think
space? Like,
I think the best place to start is where's our clients, and our clients
mm,
are definitely in the mid market. I think it's a function of access to resources,
mm,
Evan. I think really large companies, who have large amounts of staff and
mm,
lots of resources, have a better ability to craft a lot of these solutions on their own. But for those companies, and when I say mid market, it's revenue that's in the hundreds of million, probably up near up into the hundreds of millions, probably 50 million on the low side, hundreds of millions on the high side. But they're growing really rapidly. They've got small IT staffs. They're very taxed for resources, and those IT resources really need to focus on enabling the business. And so if you think about the nature of data protection, having great data protection doesn't make a law firm a better law firm. But if that law firm loses its data, it's out of the business of practicing law. And
wow.
so what I tend to challenge prospects is, stack rank, data protection against everything that you're working on as an organization. It always, in order of importance, it always ends up very high, and then separate it: mission supportive, non-mission supportive. Anything that is high on that list and non-mission supportive kind of begs to be outsourced. And so by turning to an MSP, we bring all of that as a part of our offering. So all of those best practices as it relates to not only the topology of how you set up your solution, but the strategy by which you determine, hey, what are my critical applications? How do I stack rank these applications? Which ones need to come up first? And then at an application layer, what are the supporting VMs that need to be in place? We think about all of that as a part of our drills, as a part of the DR offering, and then we drill that recovery twice a year, and we make it a part of the service. And so there's no additional expense to mashing the drill button twice a year and watching everything come up and go live. Why do we do that? Well, because you asked about the Navy, that's where I learned that. One of the things I did when I was on a ship is I ran the damage control training team, and we drilled every day. And do you think a
Mm.
bunch of sailors want to run a fire drill on Christmas Day, or even worse, New Year's Day? They don't. So why did we do it? Well, because when the chips are down, you want to be able to know exactly what you have to do in the event of a disaster, in the event of an emergency. And that's why we do these drills, and we make it to where, it doesn't cost you anything. Hit the button, make sure that everything works. Why? Because IT is not static, it's dynamic, it changes all the time. And every time you do that, you find that, some virtual machine dependencies
Mm.
changed, something wasn't where it used to be, or something's new, and that you have to make some adjustments. And you do that drilling so that when the emergency happens, you can mash that button with confidence, knowing that you're going to be able to come up, you're going to be able to operate.
Brilliant. Well, great insights there. Tell us a little bit from your point of view on the future of backup technology, recovery technology. There's a lot in the pipeline, I think. I'm guessing there's something to do with machine learning and AI on your roadmap, your radar. What's most exciting, do you think, over the next year or two?
Evan, single word: cloud. Mid-market's now starting to meaningfully adopt to the public cloud, moving workloads, refactoring workloads, bringing. We see cloud adoption now in the mid-market, and the challenge with cloud is that it's expensive, and good disaster recovery capability in the cloud is redundancy, but redundancy, radically increases cost. And so
Mm.
the next frontier is orchestrating cost-effective recovery in the public cloud. And the challenge with that has been, and this is where I think AI and ML are going to have a really big impact, is that when you set up your workloads in the cloud, there were 1,000 buttons and as many levers to mash and to pull. And
Mm.
depending on which order those levers and buttons were mashed, your solution, your environment became very bespoke. And so figuring out how to know what is going on in production and replicate that on demand in recovery, so that you're only having to pay for those resources when you need to consume them, when you need to drill them, or when you need to actually invoke that plan. That's a problem that we're working hard to solve. I don't think it's solved yet, but I think as the mid-market, I personally think that cloud adoption is going to continue. We definitely haven't turned a corner from a cost perspective, but it gets better every day. And my money's on the cloud providers. I think the Azures and the AWSs and the Googles of the world are going to figure out the cost, and they're going to continue to capture market share, moving down out of large enterprise and into mid-market, and helping customers get onto those platforms, optimize their spending, and make sure that they have resiliency. And that's really going to be the future.
Fantastic. And of course, we're seeing multi-cloud, not just one provider. So another opportunity for you to help crack. I guess final question here. You've had an amazing career so far. Any advice to the up and coming, I'll call them kids out there, and the analysts, the folks getting into IT or security or related fields? What would you top three pieces of advice for those folks?
I wish I had a time machine, Evan. I've made a lot of wrong turns in my life. I think the one that I always joke, somewhat morbid joke, but they'll chisel this on my tombstone. Never ever give up your customers until you're done. I had one of these businesses. It was a very successful business. It was in this space, and I let it go. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time, and it's hard to look back and play woulda, coulda, shoulda. That's just not the way life works. You got to make the best decision that's in front of you at the moment, and then you got to move on, because if you know how it goes, right? If you turn around and look behind you, you might run into something that could hurt you. So you've got to always look forward, but never let go of those customers. People ask me what I do today, and it's very simple. I wake up every morning and I go to work rebuilding my customer base. I've been at it for 7 years, and I can tell you that I won't let it go again. So that may not have been three. Maybe it was close to three. The big one being never give up your customers. The second one being you can't look behind yourselves too long. You might run into something that's in front of you. And then I think the final thing that I would say, Evan, is, it's just hard work. If you show up and you immerse yourself in your business, you meet guys like you, and you get involved in networks like the one you've created, and you just stay at it. You're going to join that peer group. You're going to be a part of that momentum, and you're going to be able to see things as they change. A lot of times, you read these books and you feel like, some monster came out from under the bed and it was horrible and it just happened. Well, business doesn't work that way. The monsters make noise, and they stick their arms out from under the bed, and then they stick a leg out. So they announce themselves, and and if you're not paying attention, if you're looking behind you, something bad could happen. But I think if you just get into the business and you work hard and you never let up, hard work still pays off in America, still pays off starting these businesses. You run those three things, you got a good shot.
No, it's a great opportunity out there for folks, particularly veterans, young veterans who are getting out and going into cybersecurity. There seems to be a bit of a magnet there. Maybe they were in Afghanistan or Iraq or overseas and had some, skills that are really transferable to IT security. So it's really fun to see that. What are you looking forward to this year? Any events coming up? Travel coming up? You're obviously on the road already, so it's going to be a busy year.
Yeah, we stay really busy, Evan. We sell through the channel.
Hmm.
We're 100% channel. We sell through, again, we partnered around today, well, not so much 7 years ago, but today a very popular OEM
Mm.
manufacturer in the data protection space, Rubrik. Well, we mimic their channel. So where we find, and Rubrik sells 100% through the channel. So
Aha.
where they find traction with CDW and E Plus and WWT and Presidio, we also follow them. And it's not just the large region, it's not just the large globals and internationals. We work very closely with the regional providers and the people that sit inside the states and hold the special contracts that enable them to do state, local, and education business. And so we're 100% through the partner. And so you bet this is going to be par for the course for us. I'm in Minneapolis today. I am flying to Milwaukee on Wednesday. I am in Sheboygan Wednesday afternoon with another customer, and I'm in Chicago with partners all the way through to Friday afternoon. So it's going to be a heavy focus on growing the business. We just recently raised a round of financing.
Oh, well
It
done.
was a difficult market to do that. We just closed that in October, and that to me embodies our dedication to growing this business. I mean, we're just we're not really just getting started, right? Because we've been at it for 7 years, but we're really pressing down on the gas pedal. The model works. Adding consumption as a service options to these traditional routes of market. With a very partnered tightly with an OEM that's got a very hot hand. It's I'm full of those old sayings, right, Evan? But you got to make the hay while the sun's shining,
We're full
and
of
despite the
something,
snow
but
falling out of
yes,
the sky.
I
um,
hope you bought your winter coat. Good luck getting around the Midwest this time of year. I'm sure you'll make it. And yeah, thanks for the great insights and stories. Really learned a lot, as I always do. And thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Assured Twitter, LinkedIn, all the channels. They're super active. Thanks, Stacy. Great chatting.
Thank you, Evan.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care.